Welcome to XO, where science meets heart at the kitchen table. I'm your host, Davey. In each episode, I narrate B-side tracks curated around a single theme: the why behind the ingredients, the swaps that make it better, and the stories that have been simmering for generations. No interviews, no guests, just me and you. This is EP7, The Fat Files. Before we get into the kitchen, the ratios, the oils, the plants, the nuts, the lie that took butter off every table in America, I need to tell you what this episode is really about. It's not about fat. It's about what we were told to fear and what that fear cost us. Because once you understand that the problem was never omega-3 or omega-6 alone, it was the ratio between them, the whole game changes. Once you know why the low-fat era made us sicker, the butter goes back in the pan and it stays there. Once you see a single plant doing 5 different jobs without wasting a single part of itself, you stop thinking about shelf space and start thinking about integrity. Once you learn which oil can actually handle the heat, your cabinet gets smaller and smarter. And once you know your 4 nuts, including the one with a hard ceiling of 2 a day, you stop eating handfuls and start eating with intention. 5 tracks. 1 macro we got wrong. Let's fix it. Track 1, the ratio. I grew up in Cincinnati. No ocean, no coast. The fish situation was mild white fish, cod, orange, roughy. And honestly, that was fine. That was the ceiling, and I wasn't complaining. And tartar sauce. Don't get me started on tartar sauce. That stuff is a little gift from above. Great with fries, by the way. So when I started paying attention to what I was eating, and omega-3s kept coming up as something I needed more of, my first reaction was practical: salmon. That's what everyone says. Salmon is the answer. Except I don't really like salmon. I stood there thinking, I wish I liked it. I genuinely do. And then I started looking for a workaround. What else has omega-3? Can I get there with tuna? What about something that isn't fish at all? That search led me somewhere I wasn't expecting. Not just to tuna and chia seeds and walnuts, though that's where I ended up. It led me to the real question, which wasn't how do I get more omega-3? It was why does the balance matter in the first place? Here's what I didn't understand at first. Omega-3 and omega-6 are both essential fatty acids. Your body needs both. Can't make either one on its own, has to get them from food. So far, simple enough. The problem isn't omega-6. Omega-6 does real work. It helps with skin health, blood clotting, basic cellular function. The problem is the ratio between the two. In a healthy balance, you'd be taking in somewhere around 4 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. Maybe even closer to equal. The average American is closer to 20 to 1. 20 parts omega-6 for every 1 part omega-3. That gap is where the trouble lives. When omega-6 is that dominant, it tips toward promoting inflammation rather than managing it. Not because it's a bad fat, because there's too much of it relative to everything else. Your body is running a chemistry that was never designed to be this lopsided. And here's the thing that stopped me cold when I finally understood it. Eating more omega-3 alone doesn't fix the ratio. If you're still drowning in omega-6, you have to do both at the same time. More of one, less of the other. That's the ratio. That's the whole game. Where the omega-6 is hiding, it's in the oils. That's the short answer. Soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil. These are the industrial seed oils that ended up in almost everything processed: salad dressings, crackers, sauces, frozen meals, fast food. Things that don't taste like oil and don't look like oil, but have oil running through them anyway. You're not pouring these oils into a pan yourself. You're eating them without knowing it, because they're listed 3rd or 4th in an ingredient list on something that seemed perfectly reasonable at the grocery store. That's how the ratio got so lopsided for most people. Not from cooking with bad oil at home, but from 100 small decisions that added up over years. Flip the label. If soybean oil or corn oil is anywhere in the first few ingredients, that product is working against you, whether the front of the package says healthy or not. I was never going to become a salmon person. I made my peace with that. But tuna works. And it turns out, it works well. A can of tuna has meaningful omega-3 content, and it fits into how I already eat without any drama. The plant sources surprised me. Chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, all solid omega-3 sources, all easy to add without restructuring anything. Chia seeds in the morning, walnuts as something to grab in the afternoon. Flax seeds ground into whatever I'm already making. None of it requires a lifestyle overhaul. It just requires doing it. And on the other side, less soybean oil, less processed food built around industrial seed oils, more olive oil and avocado oil in their place. The swap on that end matters just as much as what I'm adding. The ratio moves when you work both sides at once. That's what I missed at the start. I was looking for one thing to add when the answer was a combination of adding and removing at the same time. More of one, less of the other. The body does the rest. Once you understand that the ratio moves when you work both sides, you start looking differently at everything in your kitchen. And sometimes the biggest move isn't what you add, it's what you finally stop believing. Track 2. The setup. Somewhere around 1985, my mom stopped buying butter. I don't remember the exact moment, but I remember the replacement. A yellow tub of something called spread that lived in the door of the fridge. It tasted like nothing. It melted like plastic, and it had a list of ingredients longer than a permission slip. We didn't question it. Nobody did. The entire country had been told the same story. Fat makes you fat. Fat clogs your arteries. Fat is the enemy. If you want to live longer, eat less of it. So the food industry took the fat out of everything, and then they had a problem. Food without fat tastes like cardboard. When you remove fat from food, the flavor goes with it. Fat is what carries aromatic compounds to your nose and across your tongue. Without it, garlic is just a sharp bite. Cheese is just salt. A salad dressing is just vinegar water. To make low-fat food edible, manufacturers had to replace what they took out. They reached for two things, sugar and chemistry. High fructose corn syrup, stabilizers, emulsifiers, highly processed seed oils that could mimic the mouthfeel of fat without technically being fat. We traded butter for spreads, cream for whiteners, whole milk for skim plus added sugar. The ingredient lists got longer, the food got worse, and we were told it was healthier. It wasn't. We didn't get thinner, we got inflamed. Fat is satiety. It's the thing that tells your brain you've had enough. It's the stop button. When you remove it, your body never gets the signal. You stay hungry. You eat more. You reach for snacks 2 hours after a meal because the meal didn't finish the job it was supposed to do. Then you blame yourself for lacking willpower when the real problem is that your lunch was missing a macronutrient. The low-fat era didn't just change our grocery lists. It rewired our hunger. An entire generation learned to feel guilty about the one thing that would have kept them full. For decades, we were told that saturated fats, butter, coconut oil, tallow, the fats humans cooked with for thousands of years, were killing us. Meanwhile, heart-healthy vegetable oils like soybean, canola, and corn oil were the heroes. We now know it was the other way around. Highly processed seed oils are unstable. They oxidize easily, especially at high heat. They promote inflammation, the kind that builds quietly over years. The fats our grandparents used, the ones the industry told us to throw away, those are the ones that keep cell membranes flexible and hormones balanced. The enemy was never the cow. It was the refinery. This is the part I wish I'd understood 20 years ago. Fat isn't just about nutrition. It's about physics. Fat is a conductor. It's the medium that moves flavor from the pan to your palate. When you saute garlic in olive oil, the fat carries those aromatic compounds into the air and across your tongue in a way that water never could. That's why restaurant food tastes better. They're not afraid of the butter. And here's the practical piece that changed how I cook. Vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat soluble. Your body can only absorb them in the presence of fat. If you're eating a salad with fat-free dressing, the nutrients in those greens are passing right through you. You're doing the work of eating well and getting almost none of the benefit. A drizzle of good olive oil on that salad isn't indulgence. It's the delivery system. I'm not saying eat a stick of butter for breakfast. I'm saying stop apologizing for cooking with it. The swap that matters most isn't dramatic. It's just paying attention to which fats are in your kitchen and where they came from. Extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, grass-fed butter, coconut oil, ghee. These are stable, minimally processed fats that your body recognizes and knows what to do with. The canola, the soybean, the corn oil, the vegetable oil that isn't actually made from vegetables, those are the ones worth questioning. Not because fat is bad, but because processing is. My mom eventually went back to butter. It took about 30 years. The spread is gone. The guilt is mostly gone too. Some lies take a long time to undo. The enemy was never a single ingredient. It was the processing behind it. But some ingredients were never processed at all. They just gave us everything we needed from the same plant in every possible form. Track 3, The Coconut Chronicles. I have a thing about things that do double duty. Toothpaste polishes chrome, same tube, different job. Vinegar cleans a countertop and pickles a cucumber. Baking soda deodorizes a fridge and lifts a baked good. There's something deeply satisfying about an ingredient or a product or a tool that refuses to be useful in just one direction, like it's overachieving on purpose. So when I started looking at coconuts seriously, something clicked into place. Not because of any single product, but because of all of them at once. The oil, the flour, the sugar, the milk, the aminos, the shredded meat, one plant. Every part accounted for, nothing wasted. That's not just versatility, that's integrity. If most people have a relationship with one coconut product, maybe two. Coconut oil because someone told them it was good for high heat cooking. Coconut milk because they made a curry once. But the coconut doesn't stop there. And once you understand the full picture, it changes how you shop and how you cook. The oil comes from the meat, and it's stable at high temperatures in a way that most vegetable oils aren't. When you cook something in a pan at real heat, you want a fat that doesn't break down and turn into something your body doesn't recognize. Coconut oil holds. Avocado oil holds. Soybean oil, which is in almost every processed food on the shelf, doesn't hold the same way and doesn't belong in your regular rotation. The flour is what you get when you dry and grind the meat after the oil is pressed out. High fiber, low carbohydrate, no grain. If you're baking without wheat, coconut flour is one of the most functional replacements available, though it absorbs more liquid than you'd expect, so you use less of it and adjust accordingly. The sugar comes from the sap of the coconut blossom, not the fruit itself. It has a lower glycemic index than cane sugar, a natural caramel depth, and it swaps in a 1-to-1 ratio for brown sugar in most recipes. It's still sugar, but it's sugar that came from somewhere real and does something slightly different in your body than the refined version. The aminos come from that same coconut sap, fermented. They taste like a softer, slightly sweeter version of soy sauce, and they replace it completely in stir-fries, marinades, and dressings. Lower sodium, no soy, nothing hidden. The milk is the flesh and water blended and pressed, full fat, canned. The kind where the cream separates at the top and you shake it before you open it. That separation isn't a flaw. It means there are no emulsifiers holding it together artificially. It means it's just coconut. I love when nothing is wasted, especially with food. There's something that bothers me about ingredients that show up, do one thing, and leave the rest behind. The coconut doesn't do that. The oil, the flour, the sugar, the aminos, the milk, the shredded meat. It's all the same plant, just accessed from different angles, different forms, different functions. The whole thing gets used. That's how I think about a pantry worth building. Not more products, more versatile ones. The ingredient that does 5 jobs takes up one spot on the shelf and earns it. The ingredient that does one job and does it okay has to justify the space differently. Coconut justifies the space 5 times over. Coconut oil goes in the pan when the heat is going up. Coconut milk goes into anything that wants richness without dairy. Soups, sauces, the base of a smoothie when I want it to feel like a meal. Coconut aminos go wherever I'd reach for soy sauce, which is more often than you'd think. Coconut flour goes into baking projects where I'm not using grain, always in smaller amounts than the recipe instinct says. Coconut sugar goes into anything that calls for brown sugar. The flavor is close enough that most people can't tell the difference, and the ones who can usually prefer it. None of these are exotic. They're pantry staples that happen to come from the same source. And once they're all in the cabinet, you stop thinking about them as coconut products and start thinking about them as just what you cook with, the whole plant, every part, nothing left behind. That's the kind of ingredient worth knowing. One plant doing 5 jobs is a pantry with integrity. But even the best pantry has a gap. And that gap usually lives at the stove, the moment the heat goes up and the wrong oil quietly turns against you. Track 4. Olive oil's cool cousin. I opened my cabinet one day and counted 6 bottles of oil. Olive, flaxseed, coconut, avocado, a couple of others that had drifted in over time and never really found their purpose, just sitting there, taking up space, waiting for someone to tell them what they were for. That's when I realized I'd been buying oil the way most people buy oil, reactively. You run out of something, you grab whatever's on the shelf, you put it in the cabinet, and hope for the best. No system, no logic, no real understanding of what each one was actually supposed to do. So I started doing the homework. What does each oil actually bring to the table? What's its job? And somewhere in that process, I kept coming back to the same bottle, avocado oil, the one I'd been underusing the whole time. Why olive oil gets all the credit. Olive oil has great PR. It's been at the center of the Mediterranean diet conversation for decades. It's associated with longevity, heart health, the south of France, Sunday dinners in Tuscany. The branding is perfect, and it deserves most of it. Extra virgin olive oil is genuinely good, genuinely functional, and genuinely worth having in your kitchen. But olive oil has a ceiling. It starts to break down somewhere between 375 and 405 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on quality and refinement. For low-heat cooking, finishing dishes, salad dressings, a drizzle over something at the end, it's exactly right. For high-heat cooking, searing, roasting at 425, getting a real crust on something in a pan, you're asking it to do something it wasn't built for. That's where avocado oil walks in. The smoke point on avocado oil is around 500 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes higher. That means you can get your pan genuinely hot before the oil goes in, which is how you get the sear you're looking for. The crust on the chicken, the color on the vegetables, the fond on the bottom of the pan that becomes the base of a sauce. High heat cooking requires a fat that can handle the heat. Avocado oil handles it better than almost anything else in a home kitchen. Beyond the smoke point, the fat profile is genuinely impressive. Avocado oil is predominantly monounsaturated fat, the same category that makes olive oil worth talking about. It supports the kind of cholesterol balance your body is looking for and brings real nutritional value, not just cooking function. The flavor is where it surprises most people. It's mild, almost neutral, a slight buttery quality that plays well with everything and competes with nothing. Olive oil has a personality, grassy, peppery, present. Avocado oil steps back and lets the food lead. That's not a weakness, that's a skill. And then there's the skin. Avocado oil is high in vitamin E and absorbs easily, which means it works topically the same way it works in the kitchen, quietly, effectively, without a lot of drama. A small amount on dry skin or the ends of your hair does real work. One bottle, multiple jobs. You already know how I feel about that. Here's the part worth knowing before you buy. A UC Davis study found that a significant percentage of avocado oil on store shelves was either rancid or blended with cheaper oils. The label said one thing and the bottle contained another. That's not a reason to avoid it. It's a reason to buy it carefully. Cold pressed, unrefined, dark glass bottle, single ingredient, an expiration or harvest date you can actually find on the label. Those 4 things tell you what you're getting. Skip the plastic bottles with no dates and no origin information. The real thing is worth finding. I still have multiple oils, but now each one has a job. Olive oil for finishing, dressings, anything where the flavor should be present. Avocado oil for heat, roasting, searing, anything that goes above 400 degrees. Coconut oil for specific baking applications. Flaxseed for a drizzle over something cold, never for cooking. The cabinet makes sense now. Every bottle earns its spot. Avocado oil was always there. It was just waiting for someone to call its name. 4 oils, each with a job. 4 tracks, each building the case. All that's left is the final category, the one you've been snacking on your whole life, probably in the wrong amounts, probably missing the one that could change everything. Track 5, the Fab Four. I was listening to Max Lugavere, one of those voices I keep coming back to, someone whose work I respect deeply. He lost his mom to early onset dementia, and that loss became the engine behind everything he researches and writes about. I lost my mom too. Different circumstances, same kind of weight. You hear someone talk about that and something connects that goes beyond the content. He mentioned Brazil nuts, just in passing. The way someone mentions something they assume everyone already knows. I didn't know. I filed it away and kept moving. A few days later, I'm at grocery outlet, and there they are. Brazil nuts. Right there on the shelf. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed them and went home. Then I did what I always do. I went down the rabbit hole, and the first thing I found stopped me cold. 1 or 2 a day, maximum. Not a handful, not a small bowl. 1 or 2 nuts. That's the entire daily dose. Brazil nuts are one of the richest sources of selenium on the planet, and selenium is a trace mineral your thyroid depends on. 1 or 2 Brazil nuts can cover your full daily requirement. More than that, over time, and you're looking at toxicity, hair loss, brittle nails, fatigue. The thing that helps you can hurt you if you don't respect it. I stood there thinking, I've been eating the wrong amount of the right thing, which led me to a bigger question. If I could only buy 4 nuts, just 4 because I love things uncomplicated, which ones would they be? Walnuts were an easy yes. They came up in the ratio conversation, the plant-based omega-3 source when salmon isn't happening. Most nuts lean heavy on omega-6, which in excess works against you. Walnuts are different. They offer a better balance, plus antioxidants and polyphenols that do real cellular work. A small handful, about 14 halves, is the daily sweet spot. Almonds were the second yes, the most versatile nut in the cabinet. You can eat them whole, blend them into butter, grind them into flour, press them into milk. 6 grams of protein per ounce, high in vitamin E, the backbone of grain-free baking, the one nut that shows up in every form and earns its spot each time. Pistachios were the third yes, and the most underrated of the group. High in plant protein and fiber, which means they actually keep you full. Built-in portion control because you have to shell them. The act of opening each one slows you down in a way that a bag of almonds doesn't. Antioxidants that support eye health, and the lowest calorie count of the 4, which means a little more room to breathe. Brazil nuts were the fourth yes, 1 or 2 a day, every day, like a supplement you actually enjoy eating. Selenium for thyroid function and antioxidant defense. Powerful enough that the dose matters. Worth keeping in a small jar, not a big bag. 4 nuts, 4 jobs. Nothing wasted, nothing complicated. Macadamias deserve a footnote. The best fat profile of any nut. About 80% monounsaturated, which is genuinely impressive. The lowest carbohydrate count. A richness that earns the price if you can afford it. But they're expensive, and the most calorie-dense of the group. They didn't make the Fab 4 because the Fab 4 will get you most of the way there without breaking the budget. Macadamias are the fifth beetle, always welcome, just not in the core lineup. The rule that holds 1 ounce of most nuts is the right daily amount. A palm-sized handful. Enough to get the nutrients, not enough to tip into excess calories or the omega-6 imbalance that comes from eating nuts in every possible form all day long. The Brazil nut is the exception. 2 is the ceiling, not the floor. Buy a small jar of each. Keep them in the fridge. The healthy fats and nuts go rancid faster than you'd think at room temperature. Rotate through them through the week. Let each one do its job. Max mentioned one thing in passing, and it rearranged how I think about nuts entirely. That's how the best information works. You hear something, you file it, you find it at grocery outlet, you go home and learn something real. 1 or 2 a day. That's the whole lesson. That's EP7, the Fat Files. 5 tracks. 1 macro we got completely wrong. The ratio that moves when you work both sides. Less omega-6, more omega-3. Same body doing better work. The 30-year lie that took butter off the table and put a plastic spread in its place. The single plant that does 5 jobs without wasting a single part of itself. The oil that was always in your cabinet and never got the credit it deserved. And the 4 nuts with 1 rule, including one that comes with a hard ceiling of 2. Fat was never the enemy. Confusion was. Here's to health, happiness, and a remix that's uniquely yours. Thank you for spending time with me. The Remixology app is where the remix continues. Recipes, swaps, and a little something new every Friday. Here's to health, happiness, and a remix that's uniquely yours.